Hey guys, I'm Angela and welcome back to Hobby Night. We are in our second episode of the podcast and I am joined again by Chaos Cultist Jack.
Hello, everyone. How are you doing,
Hello.
Angela?
Oh my gosh, I'm doing very well. How are you doing today?
I am doing great because I just watched the new episode of Bad Batch Faster twice, but
You
excellent
know,
episode.
it's funny you say that because I too have watched the episode Faster
Amazing.
twice. And I think we should now go ahead and jump straight into this week's podcast and talk about episode 4 of season 2 of The Bad Batch. Let's do it.
And this episode is pod racing, or at least something very close to it.
Very, very close.
Yes, the name of the episode is called Faster, and we will get to the racing portion in a moment. We pick up this episode in sort of a downtime for the Bad Batch. We find Omega, Tech, and Wrecker just sort of chilling out at Sid's bar. We start off with Wrecker for some reason playing Omega in hollow chess, even though he should know that she's like a
Very,
prodigy.
very good at that and probably is always going to beat him because he's definitely not on her level.
It's almost as if it's just his plan to get to hang out with her and go buy snacks.
You know what? I accept that and appreciate him for it.
We do get the answer of where Echo and Hunter
Hunter
are.
R,
They are off delivering Nerf nuggets.
which sounds I don't know if that sounds good. Do you think that sounds good?
I mean, I know what a Nerf is in Star Wars, but
Isn't
even
it like kind
so,
of
it's a
a
cow.
woolly cow?
Yeah, it's like a
Yeah,
bison thing. But I think they're on Corellia, is where they're originally
got
from.
it.
But yeah, my immediate mind, of course, went to like
Leia calling Han a nerf herder.
actually it went to like these giant foam nuggets, like made out of Nerf foam.
Oh my god. See, that sounds way more like entertaining than than
Yes.
the meal I'm imagining.
Yes. But having basically hand waved off those two main characters, Sid has recruited the remaining Bad Batch to accompany her to a planet that I don't know if we've seen before called Safa Toma.
Yes.
And it's a spaceport that immediately will give you like a little bit cooler, and I mean that temperature wise, more temperate Tatooine vibes.
I would agree with that wholeheartedly.
Yes. One of the key things that we learn about this planet is that they are very invested into racing, similar to Tatooine and pod racing, with a type of sport that are called, what are they called? Mini pods?
Hyper rods? No, that's one of the
That was one
guys.
of the pilots, yeah.
I don't
Some kind
remember
of
what
land
they're
speeder race.
some sort of yeah, some sort of land
They're not
speeder.
pod races, but they're like mini pods or something. There's nothing pulling them, but they're fast little motorbikes loaded out with weapons.
Yes.
And the reason they have come to this location is that Sid has to perform well, she doesn't have to perform in a race, but Sid has a racer who is going to perform at a race to ideally win enough credits to pay off a debt that she owes to a gangster.
Mhm.
The gangster we do meet is called, I'm looking at the notes here, Grinny Milegi?
Something yeah, I think that it's pronounced something like that.
Yes.
Malegi, I think is definitely yeah, I think Malegi is correct. I'm not sure. Yeah. Yes, yes, you are correct.
Yes. And what we meet, who else we meet? Excuse me, I keep saying what because it's not a who, but we end up meeting the driver for Sid, a brand new droid, who strikes me as possibly a returning character. There's a little too much effort in it, named Teo.
I love this character. And I wasn't sure at first when we got into this episode how I was going to feel about him or like if I was going to like where this episode was going, but I have to admit that without spoiling anything quite yet cuz we'll get there, I actually really ended up enjoying this and I think Teo ended up being a stronger character than I expected. He is hilarious and I love his design. Like he's got the two on his chest like the twin like coil looking things,
Yeah,
which
he's
really
got
just
like
has
a
like engine.
two-stroke. His torso looks like the engine out of a moped, like a two-stroke.
Yeah, and his face immediately reminded me of like a parking meter. And I don't know why. For some reason, I have like a memory of one like a parking meter style that actually could flip around like his head does
Yeah,
because it
like an
swivels.
early 20th century thing. Like I vaguely
Something like that.
recall that. Like was that
Like
maybe it was a
I
candy machine?
maybe it was, but regardless, like I remember something like that from my youth, and his head like immediately like sparked that memory, and I kind of really love it. And I just think also I don't remember the actor's name who's playing him. I know he's from Parks and Rec, but I've not watched Parks and Rec, so I'm not super familiar with the character. But the voice actor did astounding work for this
Ben
character.
Schwartz.
Yes, he did amazing, just an amazing job with this character.
He absolutely did, and interestingly, in sort of a pattern that we've seen a lot from Star Wars in recent years, he is presented as not necessarily a droid with a soul, but he's a droid with sentience, if nothing else.
Yes.
And going so far as the writers made a point that he drives on instinct, and he doesn't
Right.
believe a fleshy would be able to react to things as quickly as he could. And it's particularly in reference to tech.
Yes.
When they're
It was the big star of this episode, actually.
he is, and we will get to that. But before we sort of move forward with that, I do want to talk
Of
a
course.
little bit about the gangster that Sid is here because of, Grinny Malegi, who's a
Yes.
very imposing looking member of some cartel of the Outer Rim. And we definitely get the impression that he and Sid have, I mean, we know they have some kind of past like history with one another,
Of course.
based on a conversation at the very end of the episode. But I mean, you and I immediately commented like, okay, they're exes, right?
I mean, that's really the vibe that both of us got. The big thing that to call out here, I think, is as soon as he arrives on screen, he uses Sid's full name, which I don't feel like a character is going to know their full name unless they were some level of
The
intimate
underground.
beyond just like business partners. Like it had to have gone deeper than that. And I think again, like you mentioned, when we get to the end of this episode, he says something to the Bad Batch that really even make more so makes me go, ah, yes, he knows a lot more about Sid, and he's trying to, I don't know, warn them, I guess, is ultimately what it comes down to. But yes, we meet him, we meet his racer as well, who threatens, I think, the Bad Batch immediately off the bat, being very, very reminiscent of basically everything that happened with Anakin and Sabaro, I believe his name
Sebulba.
was. Oh, Sebulba, yes, that's what it was, with the Sebulba and Anakin in the Phantom Menace. Like this entire
Sabaro is
episode.
a Italian place at the Star Wars Mall.
Oh, whoops. I can't believe I mixed that up. That's hilarious. But yeah, it's very reminiscent of a lot of things from the Phantom Menace, which I really enjoy because, of course, that's where Maul comes from, and he's my favorite.
So shortly after meeting all of these characters, we get to see a race take place featuring Teo. And
Yes.
Teo is performing actually very, very well. He might arguably be the best racer on the field. However, two of Rini Malegi's drivers, or at least one his driver and a man paid off by him, end up conducting a speed racer-esque maneuver to remove him from the field, involving a grappling hook and like a rotary saw blade, which was
Yes,
excellently executed.
it really, really was, causing him to fail and actually not win the race like he was boasting to Tech previously.
Yes, and it's at this point that because of this loss, Sid is in even deeper shit with this guy than she may have been previously because she was talked into setting up a bet with him. She doesn't maybe necessarily have the money to pay all of this, and her droid is wrecked, and her skimmer
Odd is correct as
and
too.
her pod's
Yeah.
wrecked as well. However, before an actual firefight breaks out between Grinny's men and Wrecker and Tech, Omega decides to do that obnoxious kid thing, and not I don't mean it that negatively, but and decides to go double or nothing, and promises them twice their payout if they win the next race.
Which
And
also was a lovely callback, just real quick to interject, to her
mhm.
and Wrecker's game where she won and Wrecker was like, "I'll double or nothing you
Oh
and play
yeah,
you again." So that was actually a really nice callback. Like I think that's why she did it is because it was fresh in her mind because he had just done it and she understood the connection of these are both
that's a
gambling.
good call. I didn't notice that. Yeah, that's a
Yeah.
good call. Um, to which the gangster agrees, but he is going to basically take Sid as collateral, take her hostage,
Mhm.
until the next day, so nobody leaves town, basically.
Yep.
Now, at this point, I thought Omega was going to be the racer
Oh, so did
because we
I.
sort of portrayed everybody in the racing similar to back in episode 1 as being very small. So I thought it
Yeah.
was going to be her.
Correct. Well, before we
Yeah.
get to that, like so the Teo was destroyed. And
He was
Omega and
shattered.
he was shattered. Yeah, he was shattered and they end up working to put him back together with having him with the intention of having him actually be the racer,
Yes.
which they do and there's a great scene when they're doing
Yeah, they,
that.
they they patch him back together and he seems okay, and that's why I think he's going to be back.
But yes, well no, he gets destroyed again.
Well,
We'll get
yes,
to that.
I know that, but
Oh, you think they'll patch him again. I see what you're saying. Well, you're right. You're probably right.
it
Oh my
occurs
god.
to me that you can't see any of the motions I'm making on screen. Anyway.
No, I cannot. I cannot. Um, yes, so they patch him up. They patch the vehicle up and everything. And they do go back to the race with the intention of doing exactly what Omega said of trying to win it again and saving Sid, right?
Yep.
And then what ends up happening is Teo is being arrogant. He is being like the most cocky droid I've ever seen, I think, in
He's
Star
Vince
Wars,
McMahon,
legitimately.
like, no chance in hell, strutting around like in the pits.
Total exactly, exactly. And him and Tech are talking about strategy, and he's like, "No, I am like the best. I'm gonna go on
I
instinct."
am the
And
superior being. I have been
he
engineered in ways that you cannot even comprehend, fleshbag.
exactly, exactly. And so he then immediately gets run over by another vehicle and puts into the exact same state that he was before.
Full
Um,
blown. If you're old enough and remember the Crash Test Dummies cartoon,
yes.
he's a crash test dummy. I think.
Essentially, yeah, like he kind of honestly, that's a you know what? I hadn't thought of that, but yes, he is kind of crash test dummy like his arms get thrown off, his legs get thrown off, like he's just a torso and a head again.
Now, of
And you're
course, the
right.
car that hit him the second time happened to be driven by one of the drivers paid off by the gangster, who just
Yes.
sort of gets out of the car and is like, "Oops," and wanders
Oops.
off.
Yes. And so at this point, like you and I were sitting there going, well, Omega's clearly going to be the driver, right?
Yeah, she's
Like
the
she's
small one. I thought
small.
we were going
They're
that
gonna I
route.
thought they were gonna do the whole I also thought they were gonna really lean on the Phantom Menace like trope of like Anakin was it, so like have the kid do it again. But it turns out Tech is the one that volunteers himself to be the driver because he and honestly, we really should have seen this coming because through the entire like first portion of the episode, as soon
Teo and
as
him.
Tech and Teo met, they had been back and forthing about like the proper way to race or the best way to race to be the most efficient to win. And they've been in contrast. So of course he's going to be the one to step in and actually take over the race.
Definitely. And so he has also been analyzing things this entire time. He's basically playing Moneyball with this race, and that'll come up in a few minutes. I do want to call as an aside that we do cut to Malegi and Sid, sort of speaking. Malegi's treating her just fine. They're sharing drinks. Once again, implying this past, if not romantic relationship, they definitely had
Deeper
cl- a
relationship.
close professional relationship at one
Yes.
point. And he basically is gives her the talk of like, so you trying to go straight with all this? What are you doing now? And her claiming to have changed from the mysterious past that I'm assuming will come up later in this
Yeah.
season. And so Sid Scaleback disagrees with him and says that people can change, and he says no they can't, and one day those clones will get to know the real you.
Which was very ominous. Like I actually love how much we're getting of Sid's backstory. Like, not only has the focus been on some of the Bad Batch members who weren't really focused on in season one, like Tech, Wrecker, and Echo, but also like Sid's getting some focus because she was just kind of the in between character for them of getting their jobs and ending up on their missions and the shenanigans that they ended up getting into, right? So this
Mhm.
time they're really like giving her a lot more character development. And I do end up wondering, and I don't know like when, like we'll probably end up discussing this near the end, but like this is really setting us up as fans to start questioning, is Sid going to actually betray the Bad Batch? Like she's already talked about how things are changing. She's not going to be able to keep doing this forever. Like she's going to eventually get shut down by the Empire as their tendrils grow further and further out
Mhm.
into the Outer Rims. So it's setting that up and it's very interesting.
I agree. So at this point, we come to the main event of the show, which is going to be the actual speeder race. Very,
Yeah.
very reminiscent of episode one's pod races. We get introduced to all of the drivers, and I mean, the names on these guys are great. Bosco, the Mad Bomber Bricks, Steel Claw Kane, Vicious Vid Centauri, who we do not see. I don't think we ever
What
see Vicious Vid.
I don't think we do.
So there you go. That's who you can make your OCs. We
Yep.
have, interestingly, Haxon the War Gnome Traginix, who is a repurposed commando droid from the Separatist Army.
One of my favorites of the entire group of racers. He's so cool. I love how he powers up exactly like how they do like in Clone Wars whenever they're being like debated and stuff. It was so good.
Mm-hmm. The Trickster Flash Raptor, and the best one of the day. If you saw the thumbnail to this video, you know who it is. It is Quick Draw Quasar, which I am 90% sure is, so we see him, he is a protocol droid C3PO body with a B1 battle droid head. I am sure this is meant to be the C3PO body battle droid head that got put together in episode 2.
I think it must be like, or at
Yeah.
least at minimum, it has to be like the biggest homage to it because I don't
Because
remember.
even if it got cut down, because I don't remember if that one got cut down or not,
I don't remember either. Like I
but I'm
can't
hoping
remember.
it got repaired or something like that.
I hope so too, because like that's exactly what I imagined. Like I just imagined this B1 just was so excited to realize that, oh, I have this like way more sturdy body and like real like hands and stuff. Because don't they have like more like
They have like the 3-finger thing.
yeah, they have the 3-finger thing. And whereas like now he's got like he can do like full finger guns because he was all about that.
Well, in the movie, he comments because he's walking and he's like, "My joints don't work right." Because
Yeah.
I think that's the last we saw of it. I don't because C3PO's head got removed from the B1 body and R2 dragged the head off.
Yeah, but I don't remember us following up on what happened to his body. So my assumption is that droid just like, I love the idea that he just somehow managed to survive all through the Clone
The
Wars.
shutdown order went to the chest part, man. It's not there. He doesn't have the shutdown orders.
Oh my God, you're right.
Yeah.
Holy shit, I hadn't even thought about that. And he's just living his best life, racing whatever the vehicles are called, because they're not actually pods.
He will go on to found the bar where the B1s are drinking in the Mandalorian season 3.
There you go. Oh, perfect.
Yeah. All right. So the race kicks off, and once again, some excellent animation and tech design during all this. Each of the racers has their own distinctly designed pod, going back to episode 1 again. And I felt like a lot of the ships were referential to other Star Wars ships. I might be wrong on this, but like silhouette-wise, there was one of them that I swear looks like a Republic gunship just in silhouette. There were some other ones that looked like some old like droid fighters and sort of like I thought some of the speeders were based on like mini versions of bigger ships.
Yeah, honestly, what they kind of reminded me is like, you know, when Lego does the micro versions of like their other ships, like it really reminded me of like them doing that in their own style, like in their own animation style and putting it into these pods. Because I completely agree. I feel like one of them looked a little bit like a Republic gunship. One of them had a little bit of a Slave One, I feel like, vibe to it as well.
A bit of Mando design, yeah.
Yeah, a little bit of a Mando design and everything. So like, I really liked seeing that. I also really hope that this episode ends up being one of the Lego sets we're getting in May or March. I think we're
March,
getting
I think
some.
it's supposed to be the next Star Wars release, and that would make sense
It would
because
make sense because it would be close to tying to, the end of season 2 for the Bad Batch. This way there wouldn't be any spoilers or anything, but I'm really hoping that we get that because I like the Star Wars vehicles, and these ones I think have some fun colors that I can see them doing some, like, interesting things within Lego.
yeah, and they all kinds of interesting designs too, and
Oh,
much better
yeah.
design than some mopeds that will remain nameless.
Yeah, exactly.
So through the course of this race, we see Tech's inexperience playing a factor, and through most of the race, he's actually in the back of the pack. Now, I say this is playing into his inexperience. It may also be because Tech is very confident this entire episode about his plan, and he seems to be
He
in the
is.
right to be so. I think he stayed in the back through the first few laps
Mhm.
because his strategy, as he debated with Teo earlier in the episode, was he wanted to prioritize defense
Yes,
over offensive weapon focus.
correct.
And I think him being last until the final lap wasn't necessarily a mistake on his part. I think he was just trying to stay away from the blaster fire as much as he could.
Think it was that, and I also think they kind of implied that he hadn't fully finished analyzing because they had, like,
Yeah.
a day, like, less than a day, really, to get ready for this
Yeah,
race
he had
because
to
they
absorb it too.
he had to absorb a bunch. So, like, while he is super, super smart, he also has to, like, analyze, and I think one of the things they're doing really well with this season is focusing on text intelligent and how it's not just, like, book smart intelligence, like, he doesn't just know facts, he knows
Clever.
how to take those facts in, comprehend them, and then, yeah, put them out like, in a clever way to be efficient,
Mhm.
and that I think he was finishing doing because he was still analyzing some stuff on the pad, like, up until the minute he had to go get racing.
Yes.
And so I think he realized he was like, okay, I really don't need these weapons because by the second lap, I think, as he's going around and
He
being in last
started
place,
moving up.
he started moving up, but he also dropped the weapon like completely. Like he just dropped all of his guns off, completely changing the speed, or I guess the weight of his vehicle, making him go a lot faster.
Better max
Which,
speed, yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, which is interesting that nobody in a game or in a sport where the final winner is determined by speed has attempted to go, what if I just made a rocket?
well, especially considering in all of the races prior to this, with a very rare exception of when either the gangster guy had actually told his lackeys who were in the race, "Hey, sabotage Teo." It really didn't seem like the weapons on the vehicles were used like explicitly. Like they were used almost defensively, unless somebody like there was always one aggressor, but it always seemed to come from an outside. Like you must now do the thing to guarantee the win.
So the thing
And
I could propose from a game design standpoint for the race is maybe the blasters are never intended to like obliterate your opponent,
they're just
but
disabling.
well, we saw that the walls of the tunnel are shielded.
Mhm.
And while a blaster bolt does strike a member of the audience at one point, it's not like a turbo laser hits him.
Right.
So what I'm thinking it is the idea is you hit the shields, that drains power from the engines, that makes it
Mm,
slower because if the shields ever die, well then you're going to blow up. So you never want your shields to die, right? So
right.
energy whenever the shields get hit have to be taken from somewhere. So
I see what you're
shooting your
saying.
opponents may very well slow them down in that
Okay.
way and might explain why they don't just focus on flat speed.
That does make sense actually, and it does give a better reason for why they did have such a focus on the offense,
Yeah.
um, previously in the episode with Teo.
Because then you would be
Okay.
focusing on making your opponent slower so you could overtake. It would be interesting.
Yeah, yeah, no, I completely agree.
But so that brings us to 2 points. The first one is a part of the track that is marked off as extremely dangerous. If you've ever played any kind of kart game, this would basically be one of those like high risk, high reward jumps where you hit the ramp, and if you're not going the right angle and speed, you're going to fly off the map.
Right.
There appears to be one of those tunnels, and it turns out, in a theoretical situation where drivers can actually die, most of them choose not to do that.
Who would
Shocking.
have thought? Who would
Shocking.
have thought?
But Our good friend Tech finds himself in a conundrum. He finds himself not quite winning the race, but he has, as Angela described, dropped his weight, pushed all of his energy to his engines and shields. And throughout all this, going back to Omega, the tech specialist, she has been supplying, well, not the tech, that's kind of pun
It
not
makes it
intended.
confusing.
Not pun intended. The engineering specialist has been routing him the schematics of the course. And to what you were saying before, Angela, about him being sort of a living mentat, he has
Yes.
calculated exactly the speed and trajectory he needs to go to hit that dangerous route.
Yes. So he decides to actually go and take the route that Sid has called out to them, because she has been in communication with them during some of this, to not go on that route. Oh no, I'm sorry. I think it was when Teo was still fighting, and she was like, "Don't go that way.
Yeah,
Make sure to
Teo
avoid
commented,
that."
like, I'm not an idiot. I'm not going to take that path. Jeez.
Right. But Tech is like, "I know I can do this. I'm going to take it." So he does. And actually, funnily enough, one of the guys from one of the other racers also follows him.
Yes, one of the paid hitmen from the
Mhm.
gangster. As you can imagine, the unnamed stooge does not fare as well as Tech does.
No, Tech gets over because he's dropped all that weight. He's going really, really fast. He's really maxed out basically the potential of his vehicle. And this other guy just falls to his death tragically off. Like, well, I guess it's technically off screen because he just falls and we never see him
Yeah, he
again.
might be back. Who knows?
Who
Um,
knows? But I really got the impression that no, that's just like a pit and you're
Cue the
gone.
well-known scream as he goes.
Exactly.
Yes. So Tech reaches the final length of the race, and he finds himself in second place between the same two racers that Teo found himself in between earlier in the episode.
And they're trying to do the exact same thing to him that they did to Teo,
But at
destroy his vehicle and make him crash.
And at the very last moment, in a dramatic scene that is best viewed than described, Tech is able to pull off a Sonic the Hedgehog bonus level maneuver where he does the loop-de-loop in the half pipe, causing the two would-be assassins to collide with each other instead of him, and we get a beautiful shot as his pod blazes out of the cloud of dust the two create as they crash across the finish line to get first place.
And to end up getting chanted his name just like Anakin did when he won his pod race. It was actually really cute. I'm sure like Tech has like never gotten that level of recognition from people for something he has accomplished and done.
I love how at the very end they're like, "You did it, man!" And he's like, "Of course I did."
Oh my god, that was so good. He's like, "Yeah, I know. I told you I would do it and I did it. You guys should have trusted me. I
Yes,
know what I'm doing."
the confidence of that clone.
Oh, he really knows his shit and he trusts himself wholly.
Yes. So the final scene of the episode has Omega and Wrecker and Tech going to Malegi to find Sid and head home happily ever after.
For
And
now.
for now. And
Mhm.
Malegi is very happy to abide by
Honor
the
his deal.
Yep, he goes by the terms of the deal. He even goes so far as to stop his personal driver from drawing a pistol to sort of shoot them. That seemed like a very bad idea on that driver's part. They're Mandalorians in power armor. Good luck with a holdout. But
He just wanted to get revenge on Tech for embarrassing him and causing him to crash.
yeah, but man, like that's a risky move going after like a Mando.
I don't really know that I get the impression that they may not have really understood because the clones were just like out in their armor willy-nilly with no not trying to hide it or anything.
That's
So
true.
I'm
People may not recognize them as clones.
I don't think they must like I don't think they do.
Well,
Like
yeah, especially Wrecker and Omega, you certainly wouldn't.
well,
And
right, because and Tech is
who's
still
ever
different
seen?
enough.
Yeah, whoever saw a clone with Tech's hairline?
Exactly. So like that's what I'm saying is like I don't think they're recognized as clones specifically. So I'm not sure the guy knew what he was getting into.
That's fair.
Even if the like boss man did.
So Sid leaves the room first, probably just happy to get the hell out of there.
Yeah.
But the clones are paused by Malegi before they leave the room, and he commends them on their loyalty. But he tells them sort of forebodingly that they need to watch their backs because Sid may not reciprocate that loyalty to them.
They've been hinting at every time we've seen Sid and Malegi like talking through this entire episode.
Yeah,
And it does really
Malegi
make
definitely has this attitude when he sees them of like, "Oh, Sid, you got like friends now." Yeah, it's not quite to that level, but he's definitely like, it's definitely the response of a man who is seeing like a killer who's like turned into a family man.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it definitely has that vibe to it. Like, we don't know what she specifically has done to sort of villainize her so much that she would betray or be distrustful in any way. Cause, like, so far, I mean, she's treated the Bad Batch pretty good. She's gotten them out of some tough spots. I mean, she's taken advantage of them, sure, but like, I mean, what crime person isn't going to do that in some level because she is still a criminal. Like she's still running jobs and doing illegal things. So it's not like she's a complete gold-hearted person. But she's been treating them pretty well. So I do wonder, like, where are we going to see this potential betrayal come? Is she actually going to betray them? Or is it going to be one of those instances where she's going to end up proving
Mhm.
Malegi wrong and going, no, when I said that I've changed, and she's going to end up sacrificing herself potentially for the Bad Batch, whether it being she gets arrested
Mhm.
because the Empire's shown up and like figured out where they're hiding. Maybe
Yeah,
like
that's
she
going to
has
be the
to,
instigating event, is going to be the Empire showing up in some way, because I feel like a lot of what she's trying to do right now is, or well, what she was trying to do in the first two episodes was get rid of them.
or at least prepare them for change.
Well, yeah, that's what I
Like,
mean by get rid of them. Of
yeah,
like,
yeah,
because like if the Empire shows up and they're still there, she may tell them that. But
right.
if they just leave, then she has the freedom to tell them, "Oh yeah, they were here like 6 months ago. I don't know where the hell they went."
Right, she
Like,
has a plausible deniability
I
too.
think that's what she's wanting to have happen because she doesn't want
You
to
know, I
end
hadn't
up in the circumstance that Malegi is implying will happen.
yeah, because I do that's a good point. Because like, maybe that is what her ultimate like, what will end up happening is she will like, the Empire will show up and she will out them because she's first and foremost going to save her own butt, just as, that's who she is.
Mm.
And so she would rat them out, and if they're just gone, that would save her the guilt of doing that. Because I think she like, I don't think she wants to, I just think, like, it's in her nature.
Yeah. I mean, you know, listen, I'm not going to start turning this into an anti-Trandoshan like podcast or nothing. There's plenty of other stuff. You can get that stuff on Reddit. But like, Trandoshan crime bosses have a reputation and it ain't exactly light side, if you know what I'm saying.
Do you know what you're saying?
All right. I think that will be it for this week's episode. Next week's
Absolutely.
episode is called Entombed.
Oh, I wonder if the gang is gonna get all back together, because I feel like we've had a number of episodes recently where they've been very split up, like, even, like, episode 1 and
Yeah,
2
we
were
cut them in
both them
half.
sort of cut them in half, like, the team was split up, so I wonder if this is gonna end up being them all back together and having to work as a complete unit now that they've all had a little bit of, like, development and, like, in personal things happen to them that has shaped who they're growing into more, or if it's going to continue this theming of we've got them kind of separated out, or maybe we'll go back to dead or
Crosshair.
Crosshair. Thank you. I always want to call him Deadshot, which I think is a DC
DC.
character.
I think from like the Suicide Squad.
I think
Um,
so. I think so. Yeah, like every time though, like I constantly get him messed up with Deadshot from DC. But yes, I agree. That has been this episode. We'll be back next week with a brand new episode discussing episode 5 of season 2 of The Bad Batch. If you guys have enjoyed this, please, first and foremost, if you've watched the episode, tell me what you thought about it down in the comments below. I love seeing your guys' thoughts on that, and I'd love to know what your thoughts are on the season, because I think it's really, really good. Um, but yeah, we'll see you guys next time. And Chaos Cultist, do you want to say anything else before we head out?
No, I don't have anything else to add. Be sure to check out this Friday's video coming out on the channel. I guess tomorrow, because today is Thursday.
Yes.
Check out tomorrow's video on the channel. We are doing a beautiful live reaction review to a classic full motion video game, um, Warhammer 40,000 Epic. Look forward to that.
Very excited. I'm so excited. All right, guys, we'll see you next time. Bye.